husband and wife eclipse chasing team, Ajay and Neelam Talwar. They are based in New Delhi. They've been chasing eclipses together since 1995. In fact, Anna, they're not just a husband and wife eclipse chasing team. They now also take their two young children with them. Since 2005, they have been traveling the world to observe and photograph and film eclipses as a family. Today, this is very much a local eclipse for them. So, of course, with all the travel restrictions that we have at the moment, of course, we had to find local partners. So they were very fortunate. They jumped into a car on Friday from New Delhi, and they drove about 3 hours northwest of New Delhi. It's about 240 kilometers to the city of Sirsa in northern India. And the partial eclipse began around about 45 minutes ago in Sirsa. We're looking at the live pictures right there in the top right part of the screen. Now, the big highlight will be annularity. This is where the moon will move more and more across the sun until at 8:26. So this is going to be happening
2 hours. No.
So this is going to be happening at 6:26. 6:26 will be the annularity in Sirsa. Sorry, actually, yes.
The times are wrong.
Not the numbers that are on. Right, not the numbers that are on the screen. Yeah, right. No, actually, that's a different place. The partial eclipse started in Sirsa at 4:46. So it started about 45 minutes ago at 4:46. Annularity, the ring of fire, will come at 6:26.
26.
So this is in about 56 minutes time. The moon will move completely across the sun, and we will see this ring of fire. So that is 6:26 universal time. Now, it doesn't last long. The ring of fire only will last about 30 seconds. So you have to be back here you have to be here to watch it at exactly the right time, because it doesn't last long. So that is what we are looking forward to in Sirsa in India today.
Oh, if we can get our main image up from Sirsa again. We're in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and we've also got Abu Dhabi up there above your head, Graham. We've got a few images, 2 images from Abu Dhabi there.
Right.
Now Abu Dhabi.
So Abu Dhabi is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot closer to the path of annularity than Jeddah is. So we saw the maximum eclipse in Jeddah. The maximum eclipse there, the magnitude was 0.76. That means about 3/4 of the sun's diameter was covered by the moon. In Abu Dhabi, the magnitude of the eclipse at maximum, which is around about now, is 0.9. So about 9/10 of the sun's diameter is covered by the moon, and that gives us a very, very narrow crescent sun. So yes, that's at the top right of the screen there from Abu Dhabi. The maximum eclipse in Abu Dhabi is really around now. 5:33 is the eclipse maximum in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. So there is a spectacular 0.9 magnitude partial eclipse in the United Arab Emirates.
So they're just missing it. They're just not getting the Ring of Fire.
That's right. Now, of course, this is coming from the International Astronomical Center in Abu Dhabi, but they were definitely hoping to send a team south across the Arabian Peninsula down to Saudi Arabia or to Oman to capture annularity, but with the travel restrictions that are in place, they were unable to do that. So they are settling for this very beautiful partial eclipse. Yeah. It looks like they're using two different telescopes there, using two different kind of filters. So we're seeing slightly different colors of the sun there. That's why we're looking at these double images of the sun here. But that is a 0.9 magnitude partial eclipse.
Okay, but we'll be seeing we'll be seeing annular eclipse.
That's right. So from our main feed in Sirsa, we are going to reach this level of partial eclipse, but then the sun will keep eating away at the sun until it finally hollows out the sun, and the crescent sun, the horns of the crescent just keep reaching further and further around the moon until finally they meet and form this narrow ring of fire. So we've got that to look forward to from Sirsa, and again, that is coming up at 6:26 Universal Time in Sirsa. So
we'll be just under an hour, a bit less. So make sure you tune in again. We'll just take a quick break here. We'll be back soon. And see you soon. welcome back. So we're here at timeanddate.com/live. We're having a bit of a live session here from the annular solar eclipse going across Africa, most of Asia. It's 80% land that where this eclipse is moving fast across, and it's just left Oman, hasn't it, Graham?
That's right. So the Antumbra, that part of the moon's shadow that gives us annularity, the ring of fire, it left Oman about 10 minutes ago. It's just made its way across the Gulf of Oman, and it's right now arriving on the Asian mainland. This is the biggest chunk of its journey today, across the Asian mainland. The small sun that we have on our screen at the moment from Bela in Pakistan is close in southern Pakistan. It's close to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea, and they are reaching maximum eclipse around about this time. 59 is maximum eclipse in Bela, so that's about 9 minutes from now. That's the small crescent sun we're seeing in the top right corner of our screen right now.
Yeah, and we're also looking at our main image from Sirsa in India, and we could see a few clouds going over the sun there. We're hoping that that they don't thicken up before annularity. And we were lucky to cooperate with the gang in India, because we were supposed to travel to Oman, and we made a little animation from our night sky pages that shows what the eclipse would look like there. And well, I think it just ended. Let's see if we get the start of it. Here you go. Graham, you explain.
Yeah, so this is what happened in Oman around about 10 minutes ago. This is a short looped animation of the annular eclipse as it looked from the ground in Oman. Now, Oman was fairly close to the start of the path of annularity, so this was a morning eclipse in Oman. At the beginning of this loop, we can see here it's shortly after sunset. The sun is rising into the sky. The partial eclipse starts here around about 9 o'clock in the morning. And then annularity comes there mid-morning Oman time. And right now we're in this second partial phase in Oman, where the moon is now moving off the sun's surface and is uncovering the full sun once again.
And when I looked at this animation, I said, "Oh, but it's wrong, because the moon completely covers the sun." But then I got explained that if it did cover the sun completely, our night sky animation would have shown the stars and night sky instead of a brighter sky like we can look at right now.
Okay, right. Yeah, so the sun, of course, is almost covered. It is 99% of the sun is covered by the moon during the annular eclipse today. But yeah, it's difficult to see on this small animation because of the size. There is still just a very narrow ring left.
Yeah, and during a total eclipse, the sky gets quite dark, but during an annular eclipse, it doesn't get as dark, right, Graham?
That's right, because there is a tiny bit of sunlight left, and that tiny bit of sunlight still generates an enormous amount of light. Anyone who has seen a total solar eclipse, will know that, the light levels don't start dropping noticeably until about 80% of the sun is covered, and it never goes completely dark, even when there is just a tiny, tiny crescent sun, or when there's just a very narrow ring of fire. That's still a lot of light that the sun is producing and generating. So yeah, it doesn't go completely dark.
And that's why it's so important to be wearing these eclipse glasses at all times when you're looking up at the sun, not just during a total eclipse. You could be able to look at the solar corona, but for an annular eclipse, you should keep your glasses on all the time. Right, Graham?
That's right. And of course, we're not just talking about eclipses here.
Yes,
we should never look at the sun at any time without proper eye protection. You mentioned about a total eclipse, Anna. Of course, in a total eclipse, during totality, you can look then without eye protection, but you're not looking at the sun's disk, because that is totality. The moon is completely covering all of the sun's visible disk. All you can see at totality is as you said, the solar corona. That's the outer part of the sun's atmosphere. That's the only time you can look directly towards the sun, when the entire sun is covered. But that never happens during a partial eclipse. It never happens during an annular eclipse. So yeah, today the message is, at no time, never look directly at the sun without proper protection, which, as you said, is the proper solar eclipse glasses. They should be properly certified. On the back of the glasses, there should be an ISO mark or a CE certification mark to show that they are properly certified and safe for directly looking at the sun.
And there's also another way. Instead of looking at the sun with glasses, we can use a different way to look at an eclipse, and that's by making a bit of a pinhole projector.
That's right. And this is a really effective and really fun way to look at an eclipse. You can project an image of the eclipsed sun. As we can see in the corner of the screen there, you can take two pieces of card, put a small hole in one piece of the card, and you can project the sun's image onto the other sheet of card, and you will get an upside down picture of a crescent sun. You can do a similar thing using binoculars. You can use binoculars to project the image of the crescent sun onto a piece of card as well. The best thing with projection is to fiddle around a bit. Try different sized holes, try different distances between the cards. You can get some really nice projections of the crescent sun.
You can also, if you're standing under a tree, you can actually look down at the shadow on the ground, and it will produce crescents, which is surreal.
But that's right. In fact, there are lots of pinholes around us in nature, and you just gave the best example, which is leaves on a tree. The little gaps, the little spaces between the leaves, they form natural pinhole projectors. That's right. And then you look down at the ground and you see these amazing crescent sun shapes on the ground. That is a great experience. Yeah.
Mm. And also, when we were in Argentina, we actually brought a colander all the way back from Norway, and we held that up against the sun and towards some card, and we could also see the crescent shapes through the holes of the colander.
Anything you have that has got a small hole in it can act as a pinhole projector. I think straw hats can work quite well for projecting the sun. Really, anything with a small hole or a series of holes in it can be great projection devices for eclipses. That's right.
So I think the message is to just play around with it now that the crescent sun is in the sky.
That's right. That's really the best way, is just to have fun and experiment and see what can give you the best results.
And when we were in Argentina, we could play around with it together. But you're in Japan, I'm in Norway. We've got images coming from India, so there is a little bit of a delay between us. If we seem a bit like, oh yeah, that's what you were saying, or we speak into each other's mouths, right? The delay.
By the way, just another couple of things that we should just mention on the safety message.
Okay.
We did have in our little diagram in the corner of the screen, there was a note about binoculars and telescopes. If you're, for looking at an eclipse through binoculars or telescopes, they do need special solar filters. You can't just use eclipse glasses if you're using those magnifying devices. So telescopes, binoculars, you can only use them if you have a specialist solar filter, and you really need to know what you're doing for using magnifying devices at an eclipse. The safest thing to do is to simply use a pair of eclipse glasses. Another thing we should just mention also, when you have your eclipse glasses, you still shouldn't stare at the sun for long periods. These are not designed to stare at the sun for minutes at a time. The best thing to do is to put on the glasses, have a short, quick look at the sun, and then look away. And maybe share the glasses, give them to someone else. Yeah. Do not just stare at the sun for long periods. And of course, just the final safety message, if there are children, just be very careful with children and supervise children carefully. Meanwhile, back in Asia, it looks like we are around about maximum eclipse in Bela in Pakistan. So this is in southern Pakistan, close to the Arabian Sea. Maximum eclipse is around about now. Magnitude 0.98. So
they don't,
very, very close.
The ones won't meet. Yeah.
So this is as close to annularity as they will get in Bela. They are very close to the path of annularity, but just not quite on the path. So that crescent sun, the horns of the crescent, they get closer and closer, but that's as far around the moon as they go. This is maximum eclipse in Bela. From now, the moon will start sliding off the face of the sun and will start uncovering the sun once again.
But we are going to see a full ring of fire from India. I still see some clouds going by there. I'm hoping that they're just passing clouds in about 20 minutes time.
That's right. So again, yes, 6:26 is the annularity in Sirsa.
So we're really closing in. We're going to leave you with this beautiful image, and we will come back soon. Make sure you tune in to timeanddate.com/live. There you can read about all the other places that we've passed. There's a blog full of content there. You've got access to our gallery. So make sure you go and check that out, and Graham, you and I will be back soon. Welcome back. We've been looking at some images there from Sirsa in India, and there are a few clouds there that are really annoying me, Graham.
How about that? We've had pretty much clear skies from our feeds so far, and now here we are 10 minutes away from annularity, and those clouds for us. I'm sure we're going to get a great view of annularity here.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that. And what do we look out for during annularity?
Well, the great thing with annularity is that crescent sun, the two tips of the crescent sun, they wrap their way further and further around the dark circle of the moon. It becomes quite mesmerizing as the ring gets closer and closer to being formed, until finally the sun forms a complete ring around the dark moon. We're going to see this happening over the next 9 minutes here from Sirsa. One other thing to look out for as annularity begins is Bailey's beads.
What are they?
Now, many people are familiar with Bailey's beads from total eclipses. This is just before the moon completely covers the sun during a total eclipse. There are just some final beads of sunlight that can be seen shining through valleys on the surface of the moon. But Bailey's beads also apply to annular eclipses. In fact, Francis Bailey, the English astronomer who first gave the proper description of what these beads of sunlight were, he actually wrote his paper after observing an annular eclipse in Scotland in 1836. So as the moon moves across the sun, and as that ring of fire forms, just before the ring becomes a full ring, we might see a slightly broken ring. Just these beads of light. This is the sun shining through the valleys between mountains on the very edge of the moon. And that's going to be one exciting feature to look out for during annularity. Interestingly, our partners in Sirsa, Ajay and Neelam, they have based themselves just north of the center line of the path of annularity. If you're on the very center line of the eclipse, then the moon passes right through the center of the sun. Our feed is coming from just north of the center line. It's about 4 kilometers north of the center line. This means that instead of passing right through the center of the sun, the moon is going to be just grazing, sliding more across the edge of the sun. This means that annularity will be a bit shorter, but it'll give us more chance to see Bailey's beads. So we're giving up a few seconds of annularity to have a better chance of seeing Bailey's beads as the moon grazes across the edge of the sun.
And it looks like the clouds are staying away. We've got about 5 minutes until we're at annularity in Sirsa. So I think we're just going to leave you here unless you have some more things to tell us about what to look at during annularity, Graham?
No, I think it would be great to just enjoy watching this 5-minute countdown, and then we will have about 30 seconds of annularity from Sirsa, and then the ring will be broken again, and we will be back to a crescent sun, but on the other side of the sun. The crescent sun will have flipped around, and it'll be a mirror image of what we're looking at now.
Super excited. We're going to leave you with that. Make sure you go to timeanddate.live and check out our blog there. There's more explanations there. And we're going to leave you with some spectacular images from India. And see you soon. Well, we're back, and wow, that was pretty awesome. Wasn't it, Graham?
That was great. We got lucky with the clouds, and we had beautiful annularity from Cirsa. Absolutely.
Mm. And you can explain a little bit more why the Ring of Fire was so skinny. We do have a really good graphic that can help us explain this. The reason for this.
Right, right. So the annularity we saw, as you say, the ring was extremely narrow, and as we said earlier, the geometry of the Earth, Moon, Sun system is really finely balanced. The diagram that we have on the screen now, on the left hand side, we are looking down on the Earth from space, and we're looking at the Earth and the Moon, and we're looking at the different shadows of the Moon. So the big shadow we're looking at is the penumbra. Anywhere in the penumbra you see a partial eclipse. The dark shadow just to the right of the Moon, that's the umbra. That's what gives us total eclipses. And today we're looking at the third kind of shadow, the antumbra, and this is where the Moon becomes silhouetted against the Sun. But this thing is really finely balanced. The Moon's umbra misses the Earth, I mean, really just by thousands of kilometers. So the antumbra is extremely small. The closer you get to the Moon, the smaller the antumbral shadow becomes. So on our globe, we have marked two locations. So here, the bottom location, this is down towards the bottom of the Earth. The curvature of the Earth has actually taken that location a little bit further away from the Sun. So the Moon's antumbral shadow is bigger. At the beginning of our broadcast, Anna, when we looked at the world map and we looked at the Moon's shadow moving across the map, we saw that the shadow was changing shape as it moved across the globe. At the start and at the end of the eclipse, it was much bigger, but in the middle it became much smaller. And that's what this diagram is showing us. If we look at our second location on the globe, if we move up on the globe, here the Earth's curvature is actually bringing us up closer to the Moon. It's bringing us closer to the Moon's umbra. It's bringing us closer to a total eclipse. Now, today it was impossible to actually get right into the umbra, but at the midway point of the eclipse, it is only just an annular eclipse. It's very, very close to being a total eclipse. Now, the annularity that we just watched in Cirsa, this happened at 11:56 a.m. local time. So it was pretty much noon local time. That tells us that it really was near the middle of the path of annularity. It was about as close to the Moon as we are going to get today. The result of that is shown on the right-hand side of this diagram. We've got two images of the Sun in our eclipse view box on the right-hand side. Now, the bottom image is taken from our first location on the globe. That's where we're further away from the Moon. The Moon's antumbral shadow is bigger, and when we look up at the Moon, we see a smaller Sun. And a smaller Sun gives us a thicker ring. it's a thicker ring of fire.
But
at our second location, which was, where we were with Circe just now, we're much closer to the moon. The moon is bigger, and that means that the ring of fire is much narrower, and, well, it put us very close to having a total eclipse today.
Yeah, because it's just a really, really skinny little ring there. And so then the annularity is shorter.
Annularity is shorter, that's right. So at the beginning of today's path of annularity, it began in Central Africa at sunrise. There, annularity lasted over a minute because the moon looked smaller. The moon needed more time to work its way across the face of the sun. When we got to India, the moon, closer to the moon became bigger. The moon needs less time to reach across from one side of the sun to the other. So the duration of annularity, only about half the length at the midway point of today's eclipse.
And if we used like a really, really tall ladder, or stood on top of a really, really tall mountain, or tried to get those few thousand kilometers up, then could we have seen a total solar eclipse?
Well, that's right. That's a very good question. Is there any way we can get closer to the moon? I'm not sure about your ladder idea, but certainly the mountains does make a difference. Now, today's annular eclipse is passing over the Himalayas. It's passing over Tibet. The high point of today's eclipse is in the Himalayas. There's the mountain Hardeo, which is 7,500 meters high. That gets us 7.5 kilometers closer to the moon, which isn't that much, but the thing's so finely balanced that difference of a few kilometers does make a difference in what we see. Now, nowhere did we get a total eclipse today. Nowhere gets us quite close enough to form, to give us totality. But up at the peaks of the Himalayas, the ring of fire would have been even narrower. And Tibet, the plains of Tibet are at 5,000 meters. Again, that's an extra 5 kilometers closer to the sun. So there, again in Tibet, we're looking at a very, very narrow ring of fire.
Could you actually fly up? Could you take yourself up high enough to be so that it would be a total eclipse if you didn't climb a mountain?
Well, we are looking at what is it? We would need to close a gap of a few thousand kilometers. Okay. So it isn't actually. There's no way that we could have actually got ourselves into the moon's umbra today. So, but the point is that yes, the closer you can get to the moon, the bigger the moon is, so the narrower the ring of fire is during an annular eclipse.
It's very interesting. And again, we're looking at Circe, and the eclipses. We've been at annularity there, so we're looking at the partial eclipse again on the other side of the moon, right, Graham?
That's right. We now have the whole process runs in reverse, and that crescent sun will become bigger as the moon slides off the face of the sun. The main action in today's eclipse is now shifting eastwards. So partial eclipses are starting. Let's see, in Taiwan, the final bit of land in today's great overland eclipse is Taiwan, and the partial eclipse is starting in Taiwan in around about 2 minutes. So the main all of the action in the sky is now shifting towards the eastern half of the Asian continent.
So we're moving along of the Antabra.
That's right. That's right. Yes, yes. Also, partial eclipse starting in. In fact, here we have now on our screen. So this is now coming live from Taipei in the northern part of Taiwan. Now, Taipei is not on the path of annularity today. We are hoping to get images from Taiwan further south as well from the path of annularity. In Taipei, the partial phase of the eclipse will start at 6:50 UTC, which is in around about a minute. If we keep watching this image, we might be able to see the start of the partial eclipse. Now, in Taiwan, the moon should start eating away at the sun from. If the sun was a clock face, the moon should start eating away from around about somewhere between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the clock face of the sun. So we can have a look at this sun and see if we can see the moon.
Oh, there you go.
Starting to. Oh, no, right. We've got our. This is from our time and date graphic. This is the situation in time. So the moon is right somewhere between the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. The moon should start eating away at the sun any moment now. Here we are back in Cersa.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we
maybe
went back to the view from right.
There might be some clouds going on. We're going to leave you with this, and hopefully we'll get our feeds from there. You go, it's back, and we're going to leave you for a while. We will be back with more things to learn about eclipses soon. Talk to you later. Bye.
is tilted the closest towards the sun. It's the moment when the Earth's northern hemisphere receives the maximum amount of sunlight. And it's a curious coincidence that this year the June solstice coincides with this annular eclipse. So the question is, how unusual is it to have an eclipse on the June solstice? And you know what? It turns out to be a very interesting question.
We did look into our calculations to figure that out, because any solstice happening on any solar eclipse happening on any date can be random, but there's also a system to it, right, Graham?
That's right. It's one of these things that kind of is random, but also it's not completely random. So let's take the question of the and the sun. A new moon is where the moon moves between the earth and the sun, and this gives us this term, a synodic month. The first requirement, the most basic requirement for a solar eclipse, is to have a new moon, because you need to have the moon between the earth and the sun. But of course, we don't have a solar eclipse every new moon. We don't have a solar eclipse every synodic month. The reason for that is that the moon's orbit around the Earth is slightly tilted. So most new moons, you don't get a perfect alignment between the Earth, the moon, and the sun. The moon is either just a tiny bit too high or a tiny bit too low, and you don't get this perfect alignment every month. Now, going back to the synodic month, this period of 29.53 days, there is a curious synodic, that's 235 times 29.53 days. You end up with almost exactly, 19 calendar years.